Ladies and gentlemen, I'm watching CNN just now, and they ran a little crawl on the bottom of the screen that said something along the lines of Republican voters choose outsiders. That's not even the half of what happened. This wasn't a Republican election last night. Well, unless you determine and wanted to talk about who the winners were. This was a general election. I mean, it was midterm, but it was a general election last night. Democrats and Republicans both voted. It's just that the Democrats lost. They lost in San Francisco, which is hard to do because that's all there are out there. They lost in Houston. They lost in Kentucky. They lost the governor's house in Kentucky for the first time in I don't know how many years. And what's fascinating about it is the polling called none of it. The polling was so off that the pollsters, I have a story here from the 538 website, which is Nate Silver, who is the god of pollster analysis. He was at the New York Times and now over at ESPN. And the headline of the story, what to make of Kentucky's polling failure? Says, here we go again. Feels like deja vu all over again. The polls in a major election were off by a wide margin. The surveys leading up to Tuesday's gubernatorial election in Kentucky pointed to a close fight between the Democrat Jack Conway and Republican Matt Bevin, with Conway holding a slight edge in all but one poll. Most of the polls last night, the last polls prior to the election, had the Democrat winning by 5. And Bevin, the Tea Party Republican, won in a landslide, 53 to 44%. So at 538, they're saying, is polling broken and not to be trusted heading into the 2016 presidential election, as some have argued? Remember, Gallup has said they're out of it now. They're not going to conduct presidential polls anymore because their result was so skewed and so different from reality. There's an NBC Wall Street Journal poll the same poll we had yesterday, but people have dug deeper into it beyond just the presidential horse race. And if you dig deep into the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, then they've got a big story on this, as Americans are angry and uneasy, as though they're shocked about it. There is genuine shock in the writing of this story that the NBC Wall Street Journal poll says Americans are angry and uneasy. That can only be news if you are a mainstream journalist or a Democrat, devoid and distant from reality. And they are, folks. Like the example I gave most recently, Charlie Rose interviewing Marco Rubio. Could not believe that Rubio would have the audacity to say that Hillary Clinton was lying and exposed as a liar during the great week she had during her debate in that Benghazi hearing. Charlie Rose, what did she lie about? Rubio isn't crazy. She lied about the fact that the video was responsible for Benghazi. And Charlie's sitting there for all intents and purposes that it wasn't. No, Charlie, it wasn't. She told one person it was the video. She told a country it was the video, but they're telling leaders of Middle Eastern countries it wasn't the video. They knew it was a planned, pre-planned, and orchestrated terror attack, and Charlie was learning it for the first time. After all that there has been about Benghazi, after all the news there has been about Benghazi, Charlie Rose, who is the dean, one of the deans of drive-by media sophistication today, was literally shocked that Hillary Clinton is telling two different stories about Benghazi. There's another. This is somewhat related, but it makes the point. New York Post, page 6 today. Carolina or Carolina, I'm not sure how she went, Herrera, the fashionista. And by the way, just a little aside here, I've met Ms. Herrera and her late husband, Ronaldo. They were constant guests at Mr. Buckley's home. I was, one of the things I mentioned, a National Review piece that I wrote, published today, that one of the big career and personal highlights of my life was being invited to a National Review editor's dinner at Buckley's home on Park Avenue. And we really became good friends until the day he died. And he was a constant inspiration to me, a validation like you can't imagine. and was always supportive. And I attended many social events at his home, and the Herreras, the Carolina Herrera and her husband Ronaldo, they were always there. I didn't speak to them much, but they were okay. Anyway, she's in the news today. New York Post, page 6. Apparently, the last time Obama was in town, she had trouble getting where she had to go, and of all things, she had to take the subway. Do you know how embarrassing that is to admit? Somebody in the New York fashion business, the ranking way up there, had to take the subway. It's like admitting that you eat Spam. That's the lower classes do that, but you don't. She had to sit next to the hoi polloi first she had to find out where to go to get on the subway. Then she had to trudge down those steps, and then the filth that she had to say. Oh, my God, can you imagine the shock at being subterranean in New York? It's a bit different than getting around in your stretch limo or however. Anyway, all of that was necessary because Obama was in town, had traffic totally blocked, and she was asked, what do you think Obama would do if he knew he had caused you so much trouble? Oh, I'm sure he'd be horrified. I think he would be horrified. It's just typical. These people on the left. Oh, Obama has no idea he's causing all these problems for people. He's such a great guy. He's so in touch. He's got no idea. He'd be horrified to know how tough it is on people to get around when he's in town. This willingness to assign just total ignorance, good works, whatever to people. It continues to amaze me, no matter how often I encounter it and how often I see it. At any rate, the left is in a state of shock today because everything that they think means death for the Republican Party meant victory yesterday. They think discussing the social issues is death for the Republican Party. Discussing them got a man elected governor of Kentucky. They thought in Houston, slam dunk. This civil rights thing on the transgender, whatever it was down there, slam dunk, left's going to win this, going away. They lost big. Can't believe it. They're in shock over this. And it was not just localized in regions, although the South had a great night last night. Other than one state, North Carolina still is an outlier, but for the most part, this was all over the fruited plain, folks. The Democrat Party was rejected over and over and over again. Liberalism was sent packing over and over and over again. Barack Obama, because he's the leader of liberalism in the Democrat Party, by virtue of his association, he was rejected over and over again. Yesterday, candidates who advocated for gun control were sent packing. Candidates who wanted Obamacare expanded were waved sayonara. Even Democrat environmentalist wacko policies were downvoted. People that stood up for the climate change argument, no, the voters just swept those people away as though they were swatting away flies. In fact, a couple stories on that. There's one, solar energy contributes to climate change, some study finds. Did you ever think that you would see that? And then there's this story. This is from the AP. As scientists worry about warming world, U.S. public doesn't. Yeah, see, they're very worried. The things they believe in. The theme of my National Review piece today is that the single greatest consequence of the rise of conservative media has been the destruction of the left-wing media's monopoly. Nothing you haven't heard me say before. But I make the point in print with the written word with examples. And it's the greatest example, I think the greatest consequence of the rise of conservative or alternative media. And the news today is a rubber stamp echoing my belief. They can't believe what's happening out there. They cannot believe. And my point is that the dissolution of this monopoly is what's caused all the partisanship in this country. Because the media used to be able to hide their bias. They used to be able to hide the fact that they're just hacks for the Democrat Party. Used to be able to hide all that behind a cloak of objectivity because they were all there was. The three networks, the CNN, the newspapers, and that was it. But now they can't hide it. They have been exposed, and as such, they have entered the competitive fray, the competition for the hearts and minds of the American people, the way they vote, the way they think, and as such, they've been called out. And that's why there is this new partisan or bipartisan or lack of partisanship. That's why everything today is so split. It's because of the left. It's not us. We're simply defending things they are trying to destroy. And the news coverage of the election results last night, you'll hear it. We get the audio sound bites. Some of the news stories accompanying it illustrate the point brilliantly. And here's what's amazing to me, folks, and I'm sure it's not just me. Even after these profound conservative Tea Party and, yes, dare I say, Republican wins last night, where do we find the Republican Party today? The Republican Party is still more inclined to work with Barack Obama and move his agenda forward, be it amnesty, be it the Export-Import Bank, be it climate change, whatever it happens to be, despite this resounding defeat for Obama and the Democrats and liberalism last night, there is a corresponding aspect too, and that's all these Republican victories last night. As the Democrats lose, Republicans win, and won big last night. The left's agenda has been blown to smithereens once again. And yet the Republicans in Washington, at least the leadership of the House and Senate, seems still more inclined to want to do business with Obama than represent those who rejected Obama and liberalism and the Democrat Party last night.